of United Airlines passenger bloody, screaming, and being dragged off a flight by security has been seen by millions of people, and one of them is the airline's CEO. Tonight, in an ABC News exclusive, he tells us what he thought when he saw that shocking scene and what he's doing to restore United's reputation. Here's ABC's chief business, technology, and economics correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis.
It's the video that had the world buzzing for days. A United Airlines passenger caught in a travel nightmare.
Come on.
Dr. David Dow visibly shaken as he's forcibly yanked out of his seat and then dragged down the aisle and off a United jet by law enforcement after refusing to give up his seat.
Oh my God, look at what you did to him!
The episode unleashing a PR crisis of epic proportions for United Airlines.
United Airlines is in hot water tonight.
United kicked off several passengers.
United better fasten its seatbelt.
Everyone asking, how could this have happened?
It was a system failure. We have not provided our frontline supervisors and managers and individuals with the proper tools, policies, procedures that allow them to use their common sense.
United CEO Oscar Munoz sat down with me for an exclusive interview.
What did you think when you saw that video of a man being dragged off of one of your planes?
Probably the word ashamed comes to mind. You know, as I think about our business and our people, the first thing I think is important to say is to apologize to Dr. Dow, his family, the passengers on that flight, our customers, our employees. That is not who our family at United is.
This is what you would call a perfect storm of bad PR. You saw people saying that they were going to boycott United. You saw people protesting by lowering the stock price, by selling off their stock. You saw online people tearing up their frequent flyer cards.
The incident started on Sunday evening when United Flight 3411 was scheduled to leave Chicago. The destination, Louisville, Kentucky. After the passengers had boarded, the crew began to offer vouchers for a handful of seats. According to United, at the last minute, 4 crew members needed to be on that flight, which is why they decided to bump passengers who had already been seated.
They told us that we would not leave until 4 people volunteered.
No, I'm not going. I am not going.
With no takers, a United computer picked 4 passengers, offering them $1,000, the airline says. All complied, except for Dow, a doctor who said he needed to get home to treat patients. Drawing even more criticism, United's first response, Munoz issuing an apology for re-accommodating passengers and writing in an internal memo about the incident that Dr. Dow was disruptive and belligerent.
It's pretty clear right from the beginning they lack the #1 thing you need in crisis communications, and that is empathy.
Why did it take until Tuesday to offer a more full-hearted apology?
I think my first reaction to most issues is to get the facts and circumstances. And my initial words fell short of truly expressing what we were feeling.
What do you say to those out there who believe that this is too little too late?
It is never too late, first of all, to do the right thing. And again, as I said, my initial reaction to the process was to get facts and circumstances, and my words failed.
This is one of those cases where it was truly, truly, truly viral, and the public couldn't get enough of it.
Especially on social media, where the incident has quickly mushroomed into memes like these. Some Twitter users even trolling the airline with the hashtag New United Airlines mottos, with suggestions like, you carry on, we carry off, and board as a doctor, leave as a patient.
This is really fueled by the fact that most of us, particularly those who fly a lot, really don't like the flying experience and really don't like the airlines for the most part. It's just not pleasant.
Making matters worse for United, this is just one among a stream of recent incidents where passengers say they were mistreated. Just last month, 2 teens were asked to change clothes before boarding a flight from Denver to Minneapolis.
We heard the gate agent say, these aren't my rules, I just enforce them.
United says the girls were flying under its Pass Rider program. That's where employee relatives and friends can fly for free or at heavily discounted prices, but that they have to obey a dress code. And in a Los Angeles Times article today, United customer Jeff Burns said United threatened to place him in handcuffs last week if he didn't give up his first-class seat to a higher priority passenger on an oversold flight. He was given a seat in economy class.
He said that he was removed from a flight and told involuntarily that if he refused to deplane, he would be put in handcuffs. This is still going on.
I heard about that, so I don't know any of the details, but it's probably another good example why our policies need to be re-examined.
I do think United will recover from this. I think if United doesn't look at this from top to bottom and say, what happened? How did this bite us in the butt? And how are we going to make sure this doesn't happen again? Then they're not doing it right, and they're setting themselves up to do it again.
Tonight, the 3 officers who dragged Dr. Dow off the plane have been placed on administrative leave, and Munoz said United's policy would change.
In the future, if no one voluntarily decides to leave a plane based on the amount of money that United is offering, will United...
We're not going to put a law enforcement official to take them off the
A law enforcement official will never come on one of your planes again.
To remove a booked, paid, seating passenger, we can't do that.
The airline has also said it will compensate all the passengers on the flight. As for Dr. Dow,
what do you think he deserves in all of this?
Well, certainly an apology, and from that point on, I think we'll have to see.
Do you think he's at fault in any way?
No, he can't be. He was a paying passenger sitting on our seat in our aircraft, and no one should be treated that way, period.
For Nightline, I'm Rebecca Jarvis in Chicago.
It is a pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon. My job this afternoon is to talk, my role is to talk about women and business. And before you in the room think, boy, that woman really drew the short straw today, I am very excited about this because women in business matters. It matters to have more women in senior roles in the workforce. It matters to have more women working. It matters because more diverse leadership teams are better leadership teams. They lead to higher returns for companies, lower risk, lower volatility, more client focus, more long-term focus, more innovation, better stockholder returns, and lower gender pay disparity. Nothing bad happens when women are in senior leadership roles alongside men. So getting more women into senior leadership roles matters for all women, it matters for all of us here, it matters to all families, and it matters to our economic prosperity. But as many of you know, we've actually stalled on this front in corporate America over the past decade. And in the industry that I've come from, Wall Street, we've actually gone backwards. Yes, that's right, we've gone backwards. We took an industry that went into the downturn white, male, and middle-aged, and we've come out whiter, maler, and middle-ageder. Now, this is where I always like to note, I love middle-aged white guys. I've been married to a couple of them myself. But as a country, we took that risk and we doubled down on that bet. And we did it in an industry that we could probably all agree, Wall Street financial services, that could use lower risk, that could use a greater long-term perspective. So this is a fairness issue. It's not just a yuppie woman's issue. It's a fairness issue because of the gender pay gap. It's a fairness issue. You know, we women today making 77 cents on the dollar to every man are working for free for the rest of the year. In financial services, it's a fairness issue because this country deserves a financial services industry that's safer and with lower risk. Now, I will acknowledge, and all of you in the room know this, that if getting more women to the top of these companies were easy, it would be easy. There's no one answer. There's no one right thing to do. Now, I know many of you now think I'm going to start to talk about some of these challenges, and I am. But I'm not going to talk about the issue of overt discrimination today. Some of you may think I'm now going to talk about the issue of subtle discrimination, but I'm not going to do that. Some of you may think I'm now going to talk about how we women do 3 times the child care and double the housework of our husbands. But I'm not going to talk about that either. I'm actually going to talk about another important issue that actually gets very little attention in this debate. Woo. I'm going to talk about hair and makeup. You're welcome. And I'm actually totally serious about this. This insight came to me some years ago. I was a CFO of Citigroup, a position of some import. I had gone on a trip with a handful of gentlemen. I was senior to all of them. We were in Brazil. We had, as happens when you're going out with clients, stayed out quite late the night before, and as happened, had a very early flight the next morning. So we all came down in the morning, and all the guys said, as guys say, "I am so tired. I just woke up 15 minutes ago." I said, "Honey, I've been up for an hour putting this together." Now, let's make a simplifying assumption. Let's assume that all of you are lower maintenance than I am. Probably a pretty fair assumption. Let's assume that your hair and makeup only takes 15 minutes a day. No big deal, 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day is an hour and 15 minutes a week, is 5 hours a month, is 60 hours a year. 1 full work week a year, check my math, on hair and makeup, and I haven't even shaved my legs yet. So the challenges that we women face in moving to the top in business are multifold, and they exist even in those little pockets of time that we don't talk about. One of those challenges is the standards of perfection to which we hold ourselves. I tell you, it's exhausting. And the great thing about coming here today is that we get to hear about how such enormously successful women, what they've done and what they've thrown away to reach the heights that they've reached and the accomplishments that they've earned. So we have the opportunity today to learn from their success. I'm going to talk about something different, however. No lessons from my success. Yeah, I did okay. I was a research analyst. I was a CEO of Sanford Bernstein. I ran Smith Barney. I was a CFO of Citi. I ran Merrill. My team and I were charged with turning around Smith Barney after it stumbled in the research scandal. And my team and I were charged with turning around Merrill Lynch after it stumbled in the subprime scandal and Bank of America bought it and it was struggling, imploding. I spent my life as a female in a very male world. And perhaps no surprise, I was most often on the cleanup crew. But instead of taking you through all of that, I'm going to focus on my failures. Because what Sally, great name by the way, was too kind to note is that I've been fired twice. And it's been on the front page of the Wall Street Journal twice. So I want to tell you what I learned from each of my firings. But first, just a bit of background, a bit of my story. It was 2008. I was running Smith Barney. The markets were crashing. We had sold products to individual investors that we had advertised as low risk, but they weren't. Our team, the analysis they did, indicated that in a bad market, those investments would go down 8 cents on the dollar. Well, we had a bad market, and they went down 100 cents on the dollar. I'll tell you, I looked and looked and looked. I can't tell you the hours and hours I put into this, trying to find out if the team had done anything illegal or unethical. But what I came up with is that we'd helped our clients lose money the old-fashioned way. We were stupid. The big print said the products were low risk. The small print said the clients could lose everything. So I advocated to my boss, the CEO, that we should share part of the pain and partially reimburse our clients for that loss. My CEO disagreed. So I said yes, and he said no. And I said yes, and he said no. And I said yes, and he said no. And I said yes, and he stopped returning my phone calls. And I said yes, and he stopped taking meetings. And I said yes, and he stopped looking at me in bigger meetings. The board of directors found out about this, asked the two of us to come and speak to them about it. I said yes, he said no. The board said yes, and I later lost my job. Now, my Bank of America story is a bit less dramatic than that. I was between jobs after my city firing. One morning, I got a call from the Bank of America CEO asking me if I could come in and turn around Merrill Lynch, the wealth management business, the thundering herd, which had been shrinking rapidly since they had bought it. He said, look, Sally, coming into Bank of America is tricky. It's a complex organization. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stay here for 2 years to oversee your entrance to the company, to ensure that it goes smoothly. He announced his retirement, his resignation, less than 2 months later. So I offered to leave so the new guy could have his own team in place. He asked me to stay. 2 years later, with the Merrill Lynch wealth management business turned around and ahead of plan, they thanked me for my efforts, they reorganized the management team, and they sent me home. So what did I learn? I have a lot of lessons. My goodness, I've got a lot of lessons, but we don't have a lot of time. So let me do this. Let me share with you 5 of the most important ones that I've taken away. First of all, number 1, if it comes down to your job or your ethics, choose your ethics every time. You can always find another job.
Dear Hijaras, Kotis, Jogapas, Marladis, Shiv Shaktis, homosexual men, lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, demisexual, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and honored and privileged to be here today. People said, I am black. I am not a woman. They are always worried, whatever dress I wear, what food I eat. I am not bothered about the society. I am just bothered about my identity. Society has made certain norms, certain rules and regulations. When you stand against that rules and regulations, you are excommunicated. You are excommunicated. I'm not hurt when my father, my parents poured hot water on my legs. I was not hurt when my family thrown me out of the family institution. I was not hurt when my friends, they sexually harassed me. I was not hurt when my police people took them to the police station and charged false cases against me. I'm not hurt when I was raped. I'm not hurt when the society thrown stones, eggs, tomatoes, cow dung against me. But I'm hurt, I'm disappointed. The same Indian Penal Code Section 317 said, all sexual minorities are criminals before the country. Why am I a criminal? Living in 21st century, with proud and dignity I say that I am a black beauty. I don't compromise the social constructed norms. I am a woman without vagina. I am a woman without uterus. I am a woman without breast. I am a woman without periods. I challenge the patriarchal made society norms, rules and regulations, and do claim with pride and dignity I am a woman with this identity. Someone was asking, who is this madam? Totally covered, not showing her body. I show my body when I sleep next to my partner. Who is this woman? So many people who are escorting me. I said, this song comes to in my mind. I born as male, my feelings changed. When I was 8 years, my feelings are feminine. I started behaving like a girl. I started walking like a girl. I started dressing like a girl. When my parents forced me to stop myself, when my parents forced me to stop myself, I was beaten up, I was locked up, I was beaten up, I was locked up, I was tortured by my parents. My schoolmates, my college mates, my friend circle, my neighbors started teasing me like Chakka, like Wombat, like Sangha, something, something. I joined to work, colleagues came to know me, I'm feminine. They started teasing, they started blaming, they started sexually harassing. There was nobody to ask these things. I started doing sex work, I started doing sex work. I did for 4 years, I was not very happy. This kind of torture, violence, harassment is not facing only by me. There are other transgender who face a similar problem. Tana, tadana, ana, ana, where to live, where to share, where to express, where to survive our life. You should tell us, you should tell us, you should tell us what to do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We live in 21st century. We doesn't know the basic concepts of sex, gender, sexuality. When you speak the word sex, it's prejudice, it's unspoken terminology. What is sex? What is gender? What is sexuality? Sex is an art. 3 beautiful letters and 1 word. Why so much of prejudice to speak about sex? What is gender? Based on your sex, you're taken at birth. The social constructed norms assigns to a certain category, you will have to follow it. When you're not practicing that social constructed norms, you are crossing the boundary, you are against your culture, religion, tradition, etc. Then you are socially excluded. You are socially excommunicated. What sexuality means to, and two individual persons' right to privacy, be it homosexual, lesbian, heterosexual, bisexual, many sexuality comes under. When one section, I feel very disappointed to speak about this. We live in 21st century and we still struggle for identity, bread, butter, clothing, housing, education, employment, marriage, adoption, inheritance, and majority deciding for minorities. Why should majority decide against minorities? And who gave you the power to decide for minuscule minorities? If you're taking that strong objection of you want to decide for minorities, I take a strong objection. Who gave the authority for that? The so-called man born with penis cannot dominate against a woman. A so-called woman who is born with vagina or the penis cannot dominate against the section who are being totally excluded, marginalized, oppressed, socially excluded, socially rejected. Why are we seeing this injustice society? Is it marriage first or it is identity first? I stand for identity. In 21st century, the whole society has a problem. If you wear skirt, there is a problem. If you eat beef, there is a problem. If you are a Dalit, there is a problem. If you are a minority category, there is a problem. If you are majority in that, the society accepts you in a so-called compromising or a patriarchal notion. I am against communalism. I am against fundamentalism. I am against globalization. I am against sexist. I am against anti-feminist thinking. I still believe, I strongly do stand for what is SP. That is called socialism and secularism. The Indian Constitution upholds for right to equality. One section are being rejected, that's the transgender community. Being a transgender, you are a criminal in the country. Why? Your family, your friends, your siblings, your neighbors, your state, your education institutions are so phobic. Why are you so phobic? The Delhi High Court in 2009 said, consensual sex between adults in privacy is not punishable. The judgment did not speak about sex. It spoke about person's dignity in context of sexual minorities. The religious fundamentalists who opposed before the Honorable Supreme Court after 4.5 years, before that, lakhs and lakhs of people, we came on the streets and celebrated our freedom, our victory, and said, we are proud to be for what we are. After 4.5 years, what happened? Maybe some of you know that. The Honorable Supreme Court of India said, no, Delhi High Court judgment is unconstitutional and you are a minuscule minority. Section 370 will be referred to the Indian Parliament. What happened in the Parliament? Unanimously, the member of parliamentarians rejected the human sexuality and human gender identities are concerned. My question to the Indian Parliament, why did you reject sexuality and gender issues concern? Honorable Prime Minister, break your silence. Why did India took a neutral stand in the United Nations Human Rights Council meeting to form an anti-discrimination law for gender orientation and sexual orientation is concerned? Why did India took a neutral stand? The largest democracy in the world, crossing 130 crores of the population. I shall say this, I all the way from Bangalore came here to be part of Joe's talks to say this word. Being a person, we cannot belong to one city, one road, one region, one state, one country. As a youth, It's our sense of responsibility, and we need to belong to the world population. Whatever happens across the world, across the globe, that's our issue. How do we stand together for a just and non-discriminatory world? Envision a just society for what we are. And I'm proud to be for what I'm here today, and I represent the 10% of the Indian population who is talking about sexuality and gender. I have a request for all of you. Can I place my request? Do you discriminate any person who is a non-heterosexual or a non-gender conformist? If a person whom you see on the street, do you tease them? If you're done, that's against social justice. Any communities who are being rejected based on our class, caste, region, religion, gender, sexuality, language, ethnicity, that's against humanity and social justice. Let's stand together for a just society and ensure that judge not support gender identity, judge not support sexual diversity. Thank you. Happy to be here today again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Breaking news coming in. The centre has backed the cutting of trees in RA. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar has just spoken, and he has said, and I'm going to quote him here, the High Court has already given its order. When the Delhi Metro was constructed, some trees were cut, but later more trees were planted. Unquote.
Basically, High Court has decided and ruled yesterday that that is not a forest. You can't tell anything as a forest. और मैं उदाहरण देता हूं, दिल्ली में मेट्रो हुई, आज दुनिया की सबसे बेस्ट मेट्रो अगर कही है वो दिल्ली में है। बाहर के देशों के लोग, अमेरिका के भी यहां आकर खुश होते हैं, लेकिन उसका विकास कैसे हुआ? जब पहला मेट्रो स्टेशन बना तो 20-25 पेड़ वो स्टेशन के लिए गिराने की जरूरत थी, तो लोगों ने ऐसा ही विरोध किया, लेकिन एक पेड़ के बदले 5 पेड़ लगाए। आज सभी वृक्ष बन गए हैं 15 साल में, 17 साल में, और 271 स्टेशन बने। दिल्ली का जंगल भी बढ़ा और दिल्ली में 30 लाख लोगों की पर्यावरण पूरक ट्रैवल की, सार्वजनिक पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट की सुविधा हुई। यही है मंत्र, विकास भी पर्यावरण की रक्षा भी, दोनों साथ साथ।
So, by the way, she's on a plane to Singapore the minute this ends. So, just to show you her life hasn't slowed down. But I just said to her, like, how's it been since leaving? 12 years as CEO. This is a job all women want, or so many women want. And she broke into this huge smile. She was like, it's great. And you've also described being a CEO as pretty brutal at times. So
I'll tell you what it is. It is brutal. It's a great privilege to serve as a CEO, and you have enormous responsibilities, and you're always in the public eye. But then, I spent 25 years in PepsiCo, 12 years as a CEO, and I gave my heart, soul, everything to the company. And when I stepped down, I thought I was going to be devastated, bereft, everything. Today, I don't even remember having run the company.
Wow.
I don't even remember. I don't even remember
a self-driving company. We have self-driving cars. It was a self-driving.
No, it's just that I'm so busy outside. I don't miss the company. I miss some of the people, but when you really talk about the CEO job, no.
But that word brutal sticks with me, and not to be a downer. I know obviously it was an honor to serve, and it was a great run. But what was the brutal side of it?
You see, I think when you're a female, a colored woman, immigrant, serving as a CEO of a large company and undertaking a transformation, every day there was a critic. I'd say the critics to supporters mix was like 80% critics and 20% supporters.
Wow.
And so all the time you were in the public eye trying to answer the critics, sort of allay their fears. So it was a grind all the time. And you had to do it with great aplomb, because if you were down, they read too much into it. So,
was there a moment where you learned that? Like, you were down and then you learned that
was
a bad idea?
in PepsiCo, there's a flagpole where you just get off from the car because you can't park right next to the building. And then you have to walk up a long driveway to get to the building. And all the other buildings are around you. And Steve Reinemund, who was the CEO before me, said, I have a piece of advice for you. On your worst day, when you get off of the flagpole, walk up the driveway as if you're the most confident person, smile, look up, because everybody in the buildings is looking at you. You see how you feel and what you're transmitting as, a message. So two things. The first couple of years I did that. After the third year, I told the driver, take me right up to the building. I said, I'm not walking, because some days you just feel the weight of the
world on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is your guidance to people who are feeling, leaders who are feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders?
Look, everybody's waiting for you to buckle under pressure, okay? Especially for women, unfortunately. The expectation is that you won't be confident and you won't be able to withstand tremendous pressure. So when you have to go through all the pressure, act as if you're confident, you're absolutely in control. And if you really do need to scream or have a good cry, which I did now and then, I locked my room. And I said to my secretary, don't let anybody in here for 15 minutes.
Did you cry?
Yeah, sure.
You cried. Okay, I want to know that. Okay.
Out of frustration.
Frustration, yeah.
And then put the makeup back on. Back again.
You should all know, too, if you don't remember, that you were the target of an activist investor, Nelson Peltz.
A couple of them.
And, he actually kind of, I don't want to say surrendered, but kind of moved on. Yeah. And also activist investors have targeted other women CEOs. But I wanted to move on to the Business Roundtable in the United States. For people who are in Canada and didn't read about this, the Business Roundtable, which is Fortune 500 CEOs, came out with a statement last month saying that the mission of a company should not be just to its shareholders and not just short-term profits, but in fact, you have a responsibility to a range of stakeholders. You have a social responsibility. You have a responsibility to the community that you serve in. And it's interesting that you were on this early on, you performance with purpose. But I want to hear about, okay, that's great, but I want to hear about the slings and arrows you had to take to make it happen. I mean, what was the reality of trying to implement that?
Well, what I was trying to do something very simple. When I looked at the world, when I became CEO, I saw some trends which worried me. The trends were, an increasing focus on health and wellness, people trying to make sure they focused on prevention rather than cure. I saw a larger focus on environmental issues. There were more water-distressed areas that were worried about companies coming and taking water from their aquifers. I saw an increased focus on greenhouse gases, on landfills getting filled up, and people didn't want plastics to go in. And our talent base had to come from the entire population, not just from a segment of the population. So we had to create a company that was way more inclusive and not just brought people in, but retained them. So I knew we had to take a great company and make it greater. So we set about doing things like reducing the fat, sugar, and salt in our products without sacrificing the taste.
And there were a lot of them. I remember talking to you early on. Like, it was very hard to get Americans to buy healthy food back in the day. Yeah.
Imagine taking Lay's potato chips, which is a salty potato chip, and reducing the salt.
Yeah.
Okay?
Good luck with that.
The key thing is, this Lay's potato chips today have got about 20% less salt than it did in 2006, because we took it down, a little bit every few weeks, so that you'll never know that the salt went down.
I interviewed you, I don't know if you remember this, but one of the times I interviewed was 8 years ago, when you were basically saying you had to trick consumers into buying healthy.
No,
and that's what you
we
did.
have to sneak healthiness.
Yeah, you had to sneak
healthiness.
Yeah.
I mean, the best example I'll give you, Lay's chips would get fried in something called HOSO, high oleic sunflower oil, which is a heart-healthy oil. It costs a lot of money for us to do that. We put a big sunflower on the bag, and we were so proud of making the transition. The consumer complaints just went through the roof, and the sales plummeted because they said it tastes awful. So the next day, we took off the sunflower from the bags, and people said, thank God it tastes the same. It's still fried in HOSO, okay? I was not backing off from the healthy part, all right? And so all that we were doing in Performance with Purpose was saying, we'll still deliver performance, but we're going to change our portfolio to make it lower in fat, sugar, and salt, and dial up the good for you. We're going to reduce our plastic use, our water use. We're going to reduce our greenhouse gases. And we're going to make this company a great company for everybody who wants to work in the company, not just a few people. But all of this required investments. R&D investments, required investments to figure out how to reduce the water use. So I told them, this is what we're going to invest. And they told me the following. They said, you're not Mother Teresa. Why do you have to reduce the fat, sugar, and salt? I'd look at them and say, have you changed your eating or drinking habits? Oh, yeah, I have, but don't worry about me. I don't want
and
you.
These are investors?
Yes,
or,
yes, very much.
I mean, these are shareholders, or who are these?
Fund managers.
People on your team?
Big owners. Well, people on our team actually embraced it and said we had to do this. Because they were hearing it from their family members who said things had to change.
But they're not paying for it. The investors and shareholders are paying for it.
They're not paying for it. They're creating a long-term, sustainably performing company. But they were more interested in the short-term profit performance. Now, remember, it's not that we were delivering bad short-term performance. We were just balancing short-term performance versus long-term investments. Nobody should beat an index all the time. If you're doing that, that means you're underinvesting, unless you're in the tech sector.
That's a
in
great
which case
line.
you're
No
held.
one should beat the index
You can't beat an index all the time. You just cannot in a traditional industry. And if you're a tech company, you're held to a different standard anyway. So if you're beating an index all the time, you have to ask the question. Let me put the math in front of you. If your sector is growing at 3%, and your revenues are growing, let's say 4%, and your profit is growing 10%, what the hell's going on? You must be cutting costs somewhere, or you've got phenomenal innovation. So look at the innovation. Is it yielding price premiums? Not really. If it doesn't, where is your margin coming from, margin leverage? It's got to be because you're cutting costs. But are you cutting so deep that you're not investing back in the company? My point was, I will give you a good spread between revenue and profits, but it's not going to be extraordinary. Because I'm going to reinvest back in the company, because people like, not me, just all CEOs should run a company for the duration of the company, not the duration of the CEO. Because it's very easy to say, I'm going to be CEO for 6 years.
Duration of the company, not the duration of the CEO.
And that's forever, okay? Because you can say to yourself, I'm going to be CEO for 6 years. I'll cut all the investments for 6 years, deliver fantastic profits, retire, the next person comes in, and what happens typically? They crash the financials. Then they create, quote, alpha. Then they run it for 6 years. Then they again crash the financials. That is no way to run a company. And I thought my success should be judged by how my successor did, not just based on what I did. And he's doing very well.
And you're doing well, and the payoff shows. And